In 1999, Universal Studios Florida opened its second gate, Islands of Adventure. This theme park is considered one of the best parks for its blending of theming and thrill rides. One of the opening day rides was Incredible Hulk, an intense B&M launch sit-down looper themed to the Hulk. This coaster is revered for its powerful positive G-forces. However, 16 years later, Hulk would close because it reached the end of its service life. Universal would replace all of the track, trains, and even the queue. But why did Universal have to close the Hulk and essentially rebuild it? This is why the Incredible Hulk was run into the ground. Shortly after Universal Studios Florida opened, MCI was looking into a second theme park and a shopping center. This was something Universal really wanted to boost attendance. It's because Universal was horribly down bad in 1991. Universal Studios Florida's opening day is infamous for a series of mishaps, mainly a series of constant ride closures that would continue for the first few years. And it only started going their way with the addition of Back to the Future the ride. Not to mention that Disney was still dominating Universal's ass, with them beating Universal to the punch with their movie park. To one-up Disney, Universal was set to open Islands of Adventure. This brand new theme park would blend thrill rides with immersive theming. This park was to consist of lands from literature franchises. By 1993, they settled that one of these lands would be a Marvel land. Initially, this was supposed to be themed to the rival comic, DC. However, that deal quickly crashed and burned. But soon after that deal fell, Universal went into talks with Marvel to introduce a land to Islands of Adventure. This Marvel land would include two notable rides. First is a complex dark ride themed to Spider-Man. This dark ride aims to combine a 3D motion simulator with physical effects to make for a technologically advanced ride. This is widely considered one of the best dark rides of all time. The other is a thrill ride themed to the Hulk. For this Hulk ride, they wanted something as intense and unpredictable as he is. They would settle this concept as an intense launch roller coaster. They wanted the ride to simulate being shot out of a cannon. They were going to use a prototype launch system that Universal would develop themselves with the help of MTS Systems. To produce this launch system, Universal used a dune buggy and a weight drop on an upward tunnel to measure the G-force and acceleration of the launch. This acceleration would range between 1 to 5 Gs of force, ultimately settling at 1G. Then they would need a propulsion method to launch the trains consistently without triggering faults. They eventually settled with a fast drive tire system. This system uses 230 individual motors that would grip a specific rail underneath the train and launch out of the tunnel. The tire-propelled launch would be manufactured by MTS System, the company behind rides such as Men in Black Alien Attack. To launch the trains, the launch would need 8 megawatts of electric power. To acquire such power without causing blackouts to the Orlando grid, they would build their own motor that draws electricity at a fixed rate from the grid. This motor would use a fast-spinning flywheel connected to an electric generator to produce the power for the launch. With that, construction for the Hulk began in 1997. They would utilize this concept on a multi-inversion roller coaster. I imagine they wanted high-thrill roller coasters for Islands of Adventure for two reasons. First, they wanted more variety in their parks to contrast their themed dark rides. The other, more important reasons is that roller coasters are generally a tad more basic than dark rides. Given the issues Universal had with dark rides from Studios Florida, and the fact that Islands has advanced dark rides, they needed a couple of reliable thrill coasters to give everyone less of a headache. To do this, they would look into variants of coasters that exist an hour away from Universal. In 1992, Six Flags Great America in Illinois opened Batman the Ride. The first inverted coaster from Swiss manufacturer Bolliger & Mabillard proved successful. It would spark a craze in the industry to add high-quality coasters from B&M, leading to elite looping coasters like Nemesis today. The first spark in this shift came the next year in 1993. Busch Gardens Tampa, a zoo amusement park hybrid west of Orlando, opened Kumba. This is a massive 7-inversion B&M sit-down looper. This coaster is elite for having crazy positive G-forces on the inversions. By the time this episode comes out, I should already have a Kumba review, but I think this is one of the best coasters for intensity. Kumba also serves as an important coaster for both Busch Gardens and B&M. Both companies would pop off with new coasters coming from all sides. They would even work with each other time and time again, even to this day. In 1996, Busch Busch Gardens came back to B&M for their inverted coaster. This coaster would follow a similar layout to Kumba, but surrounded by trenches themed to Egypt. Called Montu, this invert is extremely intense with inversions that push you into your seat. This coaster is one of the most intense coasters I've ridden and one of the best for positive G-forces. Universal was looking at Busch Gardens' lineup and was like, we need to copy and paste their rides. The problem with doing this approach is that they might be too similar. Because the Universal Resort and Busch Gardens Tampa is only an hour and a half away, a lot of their attendants overlap with each other. So if both parks were to add the same coaster, park guests would notice one park copying the other and calling them unoriginal. If you ever wondered why King's Dominion doesn't have a B&M Hyper, this is why. Because Universal is using the design of Kumba, they had to do something to make it unique from Kumba. What they did was install a tire launch, spruce the elements a little bit, and plus it with theming. With that, Incredible Hulk would be ready for Islands of Adventure's opening day. On May 28th, 1999, Universal Studios Orlando would officially open Islands of Adventure. This theme park would offer exciting thrill rides that immersed them into the story. One of the rides guests would be able to ride was the Incredible Hulk. Hulk would stand tall and mighty with its green track dawning over Marvel's Superhero Island. Now you're probably wondering, wait a minute, doesn't Disney own the rights for Marvel? Why does Universal have the Marvel Land in Orlando? It's because in the 90s, Marvel was extremely, horrendously down bad during that time. We're talking Discord mods living in their mom's basement, barely making ends meet. They were that down bad. Marvel was so broke that they were willing to sell any of their property rights to anyone willing to use their characters just to make a quick buck. And that contract would have no expiration date. So that is why Universal got the Marvel Land and why Disney can't take it away from them. The story of the Hulk is that Bruce Banner is trying to reverse the effects of his Hulk gamma radiation. He invites the guest to help with his experiment. However, the experiment goes wrong and the riders turn into the Hulk. The ride experience would be as followed. Passengers board the 32-rider trains and pull down their over-the-shoulder restraints. These trains at its core are almost identical to those on Kumba. I mean, for capacity reasons, they were a better option than the floorless coasters. The ride begins what appears to be a booster tire lift hill. This lift hill is enclosed in a tunnel. When you ascend, you hear Bruce Banner about the experiment you're participating in. However, something goes wrong as Banner panics, sirens blaring, and lights flashing. All of a sudden, bam, you launch up to 40 miles per hour or 64 kilometers per hour. The first inversion you hit is the 0G roll. Like Kumba's roll, this 0G roll punches you with all the whip to make it an intense inversion. And it's even more powerful since not only do you have all that potential energy from the launch, but it's also the tallest point. After this, you descend from the 110-foot 34-meter tall inversion. When you pull out, you reach the top speed of 67 miles per hour or 108 kilometers per hour. The next inversion is the Cobra Roll. This Cobra Roll has intense G-forces as the train hauls through it. After this is a vertical loop that maintains the positive G-forces. After the loop, you head into a tunnel filled with mist. This transitions you into a helix that loops around the launch lift. Then you traverse a fast corkscrew that carries in the whippiness. This leads into another vertical loop. Then you have two twist bends into the mid-course brake run. Then you have one more corkscrew and finish out the course with a series of turns into the brakes. This completes 3,700 feet, 1,100 meters of track. Incredible Hulk is an extremely intense coaster. The inversion shoves you into your seat from all those positive G-forces. Best of all, Incredible Hulk is a smooth ride, so you can enjoy the G-forces without any discomfort. Any complaint you heard in its early years probably found the coaster too intense. Wouldn't be the first or last time we had a coaster people found too intense. The good news is that we're dealing with a B&M roller coaster. This means Hulk would be running reliably without any issues, which is good because the last thing we need is the coaster cosplaying as a McDonald's ice cream machine. And with the theming Universal is known for, they had a winner and a series of winners. With all the praise Islands of Adventure was getting, Hulk would be a standout everyone would go to. The guests thought it was an excellent coaster with high intensity forces, and it's clear Hulk would be an elite ride for many years. Now, it's not exactly clear how much the Incredible Hulk alone costs since Universal never disclosed that information. The rumor is that Hulk costs somewhere between $30 to $50 million. While that is a lot, for a mega tourist city like Orlando, that's money well spent. For the next 15 years, Hulk would run frequently with little to no downtime. It seemed like Hulk would be here to stay considering that nothing major had happened for a while that caused concern for the Hulk. That was until August 14th, 2015 when Universal dropped the bombshell news. On that day, it was announced the Incredible Hulk would be closing. Many people were shocked at this announcement. This is because this was the first B&M roller coaster to be fully announced to close. Yes, we had B&M coasters that did close before this, but those closures were the result of the park's closing. The only exception was Iron Wolf, except that was a stand-up coaster that crushed men's nuts, so understandable. Besides, all of those B&Ms were relocated and still operate today, and that's on top of Hulk still being a decently popular ride. So why would Universal decide to close Incredible Hulk? It's reportedly due to the Hulk reaching the end of its service life. What do I mean by that? In short, the Incredible Hulk has reached a point where parts of the coaster are no longer usable and need to be replaced. This is something every coaster has to deal with since the material will wear down over time. However, for most steel coasters, this usually occurs when it's over 20 years old or when the manufacturer stops making parts for it. You'll see in this series that both reasons tend to show up more than the amount of homeless on Skid Row showing up to get some needles. However, the Incredible Hulk is a major outlier when it comes to this. Hulk was only 16 when it closed. Plus, B&M still makes parts for the coaster model. Well, besides the launch, but Universal makes their own parts for it. So how could Hulk reach the end of its service life? It's because Universal was running the coaster into the ground. And I don't mean it metaphorically or some shit. No, they were literally running it into the fucking dirt. This is due to how Universal operates the Hulk. Hulk runs with 3 32-passenger trains. The operators only take, on average, around 90 seconds to check and dispatch a train. This means the Hulk is constantly pumping through riders on a minute basis. The reason for this high capacity is that Islands of Adventure is one of the most visited parks in the world. I last heard Islands got over 11 million visitors in 2023. That means the rides there must have a high capacity to prevent multi-hour waits. So with 3 trains that can hold 32 riders each, a 90-second dispatch time, and a duration of 1 minute and 40 seconds, this means the Hulk will run 50 trains about every hour. This causes the Hulk to have a theoretical hourly capacity of 1,920 riders per hour. That capacity means the line is constantly moving. However, there's a reason most other parks don't run their roller coasters like that. Running a coaster like how the Hulk does wears down the track and trains much faster. The Hulk's track has to bear a lot of stress under moving trains. Each train weighs about 20,000 pounds or 9,072 kilograms. That weight takes into consideration the physical structure, the seats, and the mechanical components. What it doesn't take into consideration is the weight of the 32 riders. The weight of the riders vary wildly from Greg Heffley's stick that's lighter than a sticky note to queso-sized pork chop that can break the last chairbender. Considering how much Universal cares about capacity, more than likely all the seats will be filled. And since the operations are so good, a train will be running every 1 to 4 minutes. That's like driving your car non-stop for hours every day with little downtime. Mileage on a car is similar to trains dispatched on a coaster. The more it runs, the faster the parts will wear out. And with the amount of ride cycles done per day, per year, the cycles begin to add up. The other problem is the intensity of the Hulk. While the high intensity is good for us enthusiasts, it also comes with not so pleasant side effects. We already laid ground that not everyone finds positives like that comfortable. Well, the riders aren't the only thing experiencing stress. As the trains move through the course, the G-forces will be putting stress on the track. Everyone knows that G-force is the gravitational force that pushes us and everything to the ground. Here, the Incredible Hulk has a max G-force of 4.0. That means when you ride it, you weigh 4 times the amount you usually do when you're standing on the ground. It's what causes the blood to rush from the head and into the feet. But heavy G-forces like this can and will cause the track to heavily wear out. The forces from the trains will want to press the track and supports into the ground. This is what causes the stress that the structure experiences. And lots of stress usually causes the structure and track to wear down or even break. So with the number of people riding it and the number of trains running every hour, this caused the coaster to severely deteriorate. In other words, the coaster got rough. A coaster like this cannot afford to get rough. The roughness combined with whippy and tight inversions that intense causes a lot of people to get massive headaches. You don't want to describe a coaster like that because that's how most people describe Goodricks at Park Asterix and We all know what goes down there. Now, I'm sure the Hulk was still a decent ride in 2015, but the problem with a coaster this intense to have a rattle is that the G-forces exacerbate the pain experienced by riders. This probably wouldn't be as drastic if Universal closed the Hulk for annual refurbishments, except Universal rarely does this when it comes to their roller coasters. Because of the high attendance they get every year, they pretty much require their rides to run all day, every day of the year with little to no downtime. And keep in mind, Florida is a cruel state to run a coaster all day with little extended maintenance. The hot Florida sun will cause the steel structure to corrode faster than bombs dropped in war zone areas every month. It is not pleasant at all for both you and the structure. On top of that, the structure has to bear a lot of natural disasters since the rest of the world is trying to get rid of the state. Considering the amount of dumbasses I'd be witnessing roaming the streets, I can see why global warming keeps sending hurricanes our way. So Universal runs the Incredible Hulk at maximum capacity with no extended closures in the swamp fire that is the Florida environment. Running the coaster like that caused the track to age worse than the milk your dad supposedly went to get all those years ago. These conditions caused the track to get rough. Now, for anyone watching this that rode it before it originally closed, how rough was the Hulk? I tried to find reviews from 2015, but the only negative reviews were from April 2023. I think what happened there was that the people did not properly brace for it, or worse yet, they forgot to hydrate. The track probably had a series of dents and damages that gave passengers a headache, and that is why Hulk reached the end of its service life. With the track in very poor condition, Universal had no other option but to close the original version. If this was like most other parks, this would have been sold for scrap metal. Luckily, Universal had a solution. While most other parks would have thrown the towel, Universal went with a different option. Instead of scrapping it, Universal decided the best course of action was to rebuild it from scratch. By this, I mean they would replace all of the track with brand new track. So basically, a full steel coaster retracking. B&M re-engineered a lot of the track and supports to add more strength in higher stress areas. A lot of the smaller circular supports were replaced with much stronger I-beam supports. But that alone wouldn't be the only thing to the Hulk. No, they were essentially redoing all of the Hulk into a new revamped version. On top of the new track, the trains were replaced with brand new 32 passenger trains with the addition of special lighting effects and onboard audio. Then the entrance, queue line, and station were heavily modified to go alongside a new storyline. The new story is that General Ross is experimenting with gamma radiation to turn riders into the Hulk. Next, the tunnel after the loop was painted black. Finally, most of the old track and trains were recycled for scrap metal. I say most because they reused the track of one of the corkscrews and trains for the new entrance, which is the Hulk destroying the coaster. These heavy changes were done not only to make the coaster smoother, but also to enhance it in a way that makes the overall package better. This project is something a lot of people would not think to happen, because retracking is usually reserved for extreme wooden coasters. Parks rarely ever retrack a steel coaster because the return on investment is usually not there. A full-scale retracking like this costs as much as buying a brand new roller coaster. That is because here, they're essentially buying an exact clone of the Hulk. However, not many guests would come in droves to experience the new Hulk. So essentially, they would lose more money than a down bad motherfucker visiting Las Vegas. Luckily, Universal saw the fan base for the Hulk was big enough for a full retracking. That and the fact that Universal will never build a brand new Marvel attraction. That's because if Universal wants to build a new Marvel ride, they have to consult with Disney, their biggest competitor, for permission, so they're definitely not getting rid of it. Plus, thanks to the wizard geeks with wooden sticks across the parks, Universal now has essentially an unlimited budget. Universal immediately started the project after the original closed on September 8th, 2015. Because of how extensive these changes were, they needed almost an entire year to complete the refurbishment, which is completely valid since they basically had to rebuild most of the ride. I'm just glad nothing headed towards the Montezuma route, because whatever's going on over there is a whole show shenanigan. Guaranteed someone pulled a Peter Griffin over there. So it's a good thing no major setbacks happened during the retracking of the Hulk. Otherwise, the engineers would have had to run to go get the milk. After 11 months of work, the Incredible Hulk reopened to the public on August 4th, 2016. The reception is that the Hulk is back and better than ever. The core of what made the Hulk good, the intense launch and inversions remain the same, but the coaster is now smoother than ever with an even better presentation. It's better themed, looks better, and has an awesome onboard soundtrack. And with the new Hulk, Hulk should now last another 15 to 20 years. And to this day, Hulk is still considered one of the best looping coasters, especially from B&M. While some people will still find the G-forces too much, understandably, most guests will still enjoy the positives of the Hulk. Now, what do I think of the Incredible Hulk? Now, I'm going to be doing something a little different with this episode of Ride Analyze and combine it as a review video because I'm too lazy to be making two different videos of the same coaster. Like I said, Incredible Hulk is one of 6 B&M sit-down loopers. The coaster stands 110 feet, 34 meters tall, with speeds of 67 miles per hour or 108 kilometers per hour, and traverses 3,700 feet, 1,100 meters of track. Incredible Hulk is different from other B&M loopers in that this one has a floor. This means your feet will be resting still instead of dangling like you're on Kraken nearby. I'll mention this now, the coaster I would compare this to is Kumba down the road, because both are green, 7 inversion B&M sit-down loopers at Florida parks from the 1990s that are loud as f***. Incredible Hulk towers over a lot of the rides at Universal because most of them are either short or inside a building. Now, the Incredible Hulk will get a decently long line. Hulk is located in the front of the park, just left of where the entrance is. Now, you think the ride would be slammed at opening, and you'd be right, but not as severe as you think, because Velocicoaster and Hagrid's does all the heavy lifting. But still, due to the insane crowds of islands, Hulk's wait can range between the 45 to 60 minute mark, and waiting to ride the Hulk majorly sucks. Not because the queue line is a great hotbox of Florida men, no, it's because you can't even have shit with you when you wait, specifically metal. 6 months before the Hulk closed, Universal put metal detectors at the entrance and forced riders to put all belongings in a locker that was thankfully free. You hear that, you greedy f***heads? It's free! This is caused by some idiot on the Dragon Challenge who lost his brick-sized item and ended up hitting some other idiot in the face, causing his eye to be removed. So now you have to put away your stuff and wait bored. That sucks because thanks to TikTok, my attention span is f***ed. I have 3 different devices open while I'm writing this. Anytime I try watching a long form video, I end up switching to a different video, rinse and repeat. And don't think you're in the clear, your attention span is also cooked. I have the statistics here to prove it. Luckily, the queue line is not as bad as you think for your brain rot. After using the free lockers and passing the extra queue space and through the metal detectors praying security doesn't violate you, you make it inside the themed switchback room. This room is to represent General Ross's testing facility, so you have a bunch of props and screens to tell you the story, so you're at least entertained while you're waiting. Plus, this line moves fast because of the insane operations. When you get to the station, there is a grouper, but you can request a row if you ask nicely. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember how forceful it was in the back row because it's been years since I've ridden it back there. My latest rides were in the front row, so that's where I'll be describing the ride. When you board the trains, you have your usual over-the-shoulder restraints. Despite buying new trains, they decide to keep the over-the-shoulder restraints. Like every B&M coaster using these, the restraints are good, but I recommend leaning forwards to prevent discomfort. Now, I'm going to be describing the layout again, but this time with my thoughts on the forces exerted. The ride begins with the tire launch disguised as a lift. During the anticipation, lights will be flashing and AI audio will be talking. When the lights on the sides turn to bolts and the Hulk screams, you launch from 0 to 40 miles per hour or 0 to 64 kilometers per hour in 2 seconds, pulling 1 G of force. This tire launch is extremely forceful. Not only does the launch have quite the punch, but keep in mind you're launching uphill, so you have to overcome gravity to get up to speed. This results in such a powerful launch, especially for one using tires. Tire launches are almost exclusively found on family coasters and are usually not forceful, so it's a nice change of pace to have a good tire launch. And to make it more exciting, you directly launch into the 0G roll. Like Kumba's roll, this 0G roll is crazy intense as it whips you so hard. You forcibly whip 360 degrees as it offers laterals and positives, and it's even more powerful than Kumba because of how much speed you have going through it. Then you gain even more speed because you descend from ground level from the roll. The next inversion is the Cobra roll. Now, most Cobra rolls for me typically does jack shit. most of the time. Cobra rolls are usually rather dull and pulls no forces. This Cobra roll, on the other hand, is crazy intense as it pushes you into your seat while pulling some snap. The only one I find more intense than this is the Cobra roll on Alpengeist at Virginia's Busch Gardens Williamsburg. And keep in mind that invert is 195 feet or 59 meters tall. Hulk is only 110 feet or 34 meters tall, but bear in mind that the Cobra roll is the first of several moments that can cause head banging. Even though the tracking is smooth, because of the whippiness of some of the inversions combined with the restraints, you are still susceptible to head banging, so it's important to lean forwards to minimize that. After the Cobra roll is the ever so intense vertical loop. The loop maintains the positive G forces, and this is where I slightly start to gray out. The end of the loop dives below ground level into a mist-filled tunnel. Then you traverse the helix that wraps around the launch lift. The helix is fast enough to where you still maintain the positive Gs. Then you head into a corkscrew. This corkscrew is fast and whippy, giving some great laterals. But this corkscrew is raised a bit off the ground, so the exit of the corkscrew dives back down to ground level. After this is a smaller vertical loop, which is equally as forceful. Then you have this overbanked S-hill into the mid-course brake run. Unfortunately, this is where the ride dies. Hulk's first half is one of the best first halves. Had the coaster ended there, it would have been a near perfect coaster. The coaster is smooth, intense, and well paced. You have the powerful launch and 6 different inversions in rapid fire speed. However, this mid-course takes a good chunk of your speed away. So during the second half, you're slowly going through it while trying to make it to the station. It starts with a shallow drop that doesn't do shit into a lackluster corkscrew. This corkscrew is slow, has no force, and is rather forgettable. Then you have a left-hand turn and a helix into the brakes. This section of track is extremely boring and feels like sitting in history class where the teacher doesn't know how to teach. Then you hit the brakes, completing 3,700 feet, 1,100 meters of track. While the second half after the mid-course drops the ball in quality, Hulk is still a high-quality coaster that can't be missed. The tire launch and 6 of the inversions either push me to my seat or try whipping me so hard to the side. And look at it this way, at least they didn't go for a stand-up that tries to crush your nuts. But how does this compare to Kumba? While Hulk undeniably has better elements and is smoother, Kumba has a more well-rounded layout that is better paced. But the launch beats that drop any day of the week. That's why both coasters rank very similar for me. So what would I rank Incredible Hulk? I give it an 85 out of 100. The coaster alone is worthy of an 80, but I gave it an extra 5 points for the excellent theming and presentation. Incredible Hulk is a forceful ride that drains the energy out of you. It does so much well for a looping coaster, and that is why it's one of the better looping coasters. I'm sure I'll be back soon because Universal is one of my home parks, although driving on I-4 is an absolute nightmare and the reason why I rarely visit the Orlando parks. But this coaster is a winner in a series of winners at such a world-class park, so I know I'm going to enjoy it when I get back, but that's after burning an arm, a leg, and 2 kidneys to get in. However, I do not recommend riding if the temperatures are over 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 29 degrees Celsius. This is because when you ride, the G-forces will cause you to walk overdrained and dizzy, so it isn't exactly a coaster you can marathon. Combine that with the hot Florida humidity and you'll be walking off looking like last week's hangover section from binge drinking the night before. So ride this in moderation and drink plenty of water because you do not want to look like you ran a full marathon while being assaulted by an oven. And it's not just the guest who likes the Hulk, cause Universal found it had excellent results. Because 5 years after the retracking, Universal cloned the Hulk for Universal Studios Beijing in 2021 for China. Called Decepticoaster, this clone has a few differences from the original. The first is that the clone is themed to the Transformers franchise since apparently the IP is popular in China. Second, some of the elements were reprofiled to make it less intense. Finally, instead of using over-the-shoulder, Decepticoaster uses vest restraints seen on modern-day B&M loopers. Universal continues to thrive better than ever with the brand new theme park, Epic Universe, opening soon. And even though it took way longer than expected, B&M is slowly getting into the launch coaster game, although they are using LSMs instead of tires. Now, even though Universal's operations are what caused the Hulk to run into the ground, I actually think more parks should run coasters like this. Running coasters at max capacity improves everyone's everyone's day as more people can ride it per hour, which results in a fast-moving line. This will improve everyone's day and they can get more done and will have a better experience at the park. Plus, even though steel coaster retracking are still rare, more and more parks are starting to perform them on their classic attractions. Recently, Alton Towers in the UK underwent a similar transformation to their beloved B&M invert, Nemesis. Today, Nemesis Reborn, as it's now known, is better than ever, and parks are still doing whatever they can to preserve their classic attractions. Unfortunately, if a park undergoes a major refurbishment to their rides, there's a good chance another ride from that same time will bite the dust. I neglected to mention this now because it wasn't important till now. Back when they were copy and pasting the design of Kumba for Incredible Hulk, they were also doing the same thing to Montu. Islands of Adventure wanted a unique take on the B&M invert. The result ended up being Dueling Dragons, a pair of B&M inverts that would interlink with each other, having several near-miss elements of the train almost colliding with the other train. Unfortunately, Dueling Dragons closed to the public in September 2017 and was ultimately scrapped. To this day, it's the only coaster from B&M to be fully closed. How could such a classic and beloved coaster close? Well, that is a story for another day. Thank you all so much for watching this mega video. This video is part of my series where we dive into roller coasters and other amusement rides history and dynamics. And those were my thoughts on Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure. Since you watched to the end, be a homie and press the like button because you clearly liked this episode. Unless you're an extreme left-wing activist. Also consider pushing the red subscribe button just below this screen. Doing this convinces the YouTube algorithm to push this content to more viewers. Plus, this helps boost my ego since these videos have been taking way longer than they should. And since you made it this far, congratulations for not having such a cooked attention span. Finally, I have a playlist of other episodes of this series as well as other videos to binge watch. This is the Coaster Flood, riding out.